Well, as many of you have heard, Russia is now doing an about-face and is now leaving Syria. Now, certainly just because they say they're leaving doesn't necessarily mean that they are, but they are going to at some point downgrade. And to be honest, they didn't really have that much in Syria to begin with. Nothing like what I would suspect if, in fact, Ezekiel 38 and 39 Gog and Magog were to break out. And if and when they do leave, they'll be leaving behind two bases as well. So they'll still have a footprint in Syria. And as I've said, we'll wait and see how lean they do get as they move out. Stratford also came out with an analysis of why they believe that some of the scenario could be that Russia is leaving. It says, given the timing, Putin's announcement appears to be an attempt to shape the latest round of peace negotiations, which began March 14th in Geneva. What has been called a last-chance effort to strike a peace deal. Delegations from the Syrian regime and the opposition are meeting with UN envoys this week. The Syrian regime submitted a political proposal to the United Nations on Monday, while the opposition delegation called on Russia to use its influence over the regime during the negotiations. With Russia pulling back on ground operations, Moscow is either positioning itself as an arbiter or it could already have secured a deal from the regime that it soon will unveil. Either way, the Kremlin is trying to peg the future of the Syrian conflict on its intercession to gain leverage elsewhere. Moscow could also be reshaping its role in the conflict to transform perceptions beyond Syria. Another reason Russia initially intervened in the region was to gain advantage with the West over an issue more imperative to Moscow, such as Ukraine and related Western sanctions. Moscow has failed to use its clout in Syria to budge support from the United States for Kiev, or to have sanctions imposed on Russia lifted. The Kremlin also knows that both sides have stalled on progress in the Minsk talks over the fighting in Ukraine. However, Russia's leverage, at least in Europe, has grown in recent months as Syrian refugees continue to flock to Europe. If Russia changes its operations in Syria, it could slow the migrant flight. However, this option is complicated by the state of Russian-Turkish relations. Russia could hope to not only shape perceptions of its positive contributions in Syria negotiations, but also in the EU migrant crisis. In the coming months, Russia could try to pick away at the negative atmosphere surrounding the country, leading to a critical vote in July by the European Union on renewing sanctions. Following the first normal meeting between EU foreign ministers on Russian policy in more than a year, Italy and Hungary, both countries Russia actively lobbies, said March 14th that an extension of sanctions on Russia is not automatic. It takes a unanimous vote to extend EU sanctions, so Russia just needs one dissenting EU member to reject sanctions, something it was unable to secure in the past. So Russia is orchestrating multiple strategies for multiple outcomes, and no outcome is guaranteed. The only guarantee is that Moscow will continue to maneuver in this ever-changing region of the world. So whether Russia is trying to garner the approval of the European Union through trying to end this Syrian war, or maybe they have a deal in hand from both the Syrian government and have learned that the outcome is going to be favorable. But one thing's for sure, they're trying to put whatever the decision is in their favor so that the sanctions that they are under right now between the United States and the European Union will go away. So certainly it's not a done deal that Russia will continue its pullout in a timely manner, but that seems to be where it's at right now. But we know the Bible says that at some point in time there will be a move from Russia to come down upon Israel and to take the spoil. Now here's another article that I believe is quite interesting. It's from the Jerusalem Post. It's Netanyahu. Peace will come through Arab world. And I think what he said is quite interesting. He says peace with Israel's Arab neighbors will lead to an agreement with the Palestinians. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Monday as a French envoy visited Jerusalem to solicit support for an international conference on the conflict. The Arab world softening its views toward us will help us when the time comes to reach a real and lasting agreement with our Palestinian neighbors, Netanyahu said. If someone thought earlier that a breakthrough with the Palestinians would lead to improved relations with the Arab world, for us, the opposite is happening and will continue to happen. Right now, French officials are in Israel trying to arrange an international peace convention on the Israeli Palestinians. And this has been known as the French Initiative. It says the U.S. administration recently launched an effort to scuttle the French initiative. A Palestinian official said the Americans have made it clear that they don't want other parties meddling in the Israeli-Arab conflict, the official said. Another official added, I don't see how this is going to work when the U.S. administration has endorsed the Israeli stance, which basically rejects the idea of convening an international conference. Besides, Israel does not want the international community to play any role in the conflict, he added. In Brussels, French Foreign Minister Jean-Marc Ayrault presented his initiative to foreign ministers of the European Union's 28 member states. EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini said all the member states welcomed the French foreign minister's efforts to coordinate his country's work with theirs and that of the quartet. The United States has carefully made positive public statements about the initiative, but has yet to endorse it, preferring instead to see Israelis and Palestinians relaunch direct talks. The last bilateral Israeli-Palestinian effort ended without result in April of 2014. And here's an important statement. It says Israel's relations with Arab countries have improved due to threats from Iran and the Islamic State, he said. And this is Netanyahu talking. He says more and more Arab countries are realizing that Israel is not the enemy of the Arab world, but rather their partner in a joint struggle against Islamic extremists, Netanyahu said. And in closing, he stated that he hoped such partnerships would lead to the Palestinians adopting views that are more realistic and responsible regarding a future agreement with Israel. Now here's something that probably should worry Israel. It said, should the U.S. push for a UN Security Council resolution, even one such as proposed by the New York Times, which indicates that they should go on record supporting the basic principles of a deal covering borders, the future of Jerusalem, Palestinian refugee security, and land swaps, it would mark a break from the Obama administration's position that direct talks between the two parties is the best way to resolve the conflict and arrive at a two-state solution. And that very well may be what Obama does do once he is determined who the new president is going to be, probably sometime after November. But just before he leaves office, he may very well do two things, and that is, number one, he, along with the French government, may recognize a Palestinian state, and he may also endorse a UN resolution against Israel, laying out borders and other things that were just listed. So I'd have to conclude that by November or December, you need to keep your eyes on what kind of moves that Mr. Obama may be making during that time, just after the new president is crowned, and for the United States, and just before he leaves. And it will be interesting to see who does get in office, to see if they even care about the Israeli-Palestinian situation. Frankly, if Mr. Trump gets in office, I don't know that he'll really even want to get involved in that any longer. We'll have to wait and see who wins and see what direction that they do pull. And if you don't know the Lord, today is the day of salvation. I wouldn't put it off. The Bible says it's appointed on a man once to die, then the judgment. 150,000 people die every single day. The Bible says that the vast majority of them will end up in a burning hell. Don't let that happen to you. Come to the Lord today. And you Christians, you know that one day the rapture is going to take place, and you're going to leave behind lost loved ones who are going to be influenced either by you or are going to be influenced by the world. I would recommend that you get a copy of my Tribulation Period Survival Guide. There's 2 copies that you can get. One's the free version that you can download. Click on the link in the top left-hand corner, or you can get a paperback version by going down to the description and clicking on the link to get you there. But whichever you choose, I would recommend that you do it quickly. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.